Ethanol production supports 23,800 Hoosier jobs and contributes about $2.2 billion annually to the state's economy. Now, most corn farmers know that ethanol demand accounts for a significant amount of the price of a bushel of corn. The Grains Council, among others, are pursuing new markets around the world for the ethanol that we produce right here in the state of Indiana. But it's also blended into the gas that Americans buy at the pump. And this week, Indiana Governor Holcomb got a letter handed to him from Growth Energy urging him to veto SB 303 here in the state. That's a bill relating to the sale of E15 here in the state of Indiana. Emily Skor is the CEO of Growth Energy, the National Ethanol Support Group, and she joins us now. Emily, in your letter, you suggest to the governor that SB 303 seeks to limit sales of 15% ethanol fuel blend by mandating unnecessary warning labels on E15 fuel dispensers that you suggest confuse consumers. Those are your words. How do they confuse consumers?
The stated intent is, we need to fix fuel regulations in the state. We don't. The fuel is regulated by the federal government. What this bill does is it adds entirely unnecessary and confusing bureaucratic red tape for the retailer who's trying to sell a phenomenal fuel, E15. It's a great value fuel that saves consumers 5 to 10 cents per gallon. So you now have to add more labels on the pump with this law that you don't need, and they're creating regulatory ambiguity for how you can dispense this fuel, entirely unnecessary. And the impact of this is that it's a disincentive for the retailer. If the retailer is confused, if there's uncertainty, if a small business owner has to make extra investments in order to comply with this, they're not going to sell the fuel. So at the end of the day, you have a bill that is anti-farmer, it is anti-ethanol, and it is most certainly anti-fuel choice in the state of Indiana.
Let's take that one piece at a time. First, to the labeling issue. My understanding is there's already federal labels on blender pumps, as you suggest. So I guess the question is, how would the Indiana mandated labels be different, or in fact, would they?
They would be in addition. So there would be 2 labels at the pump, and the language would be confusing. And the label that they're proposing, it's like a cigarette-style warning on an E15 fuel dispenser. And this is a fuel. Not only is it homegrown, and not only is this Hoosier-made fuel, it's approved for 95% of the cars on the road. It's an 88 octane, and consumers save 5 to 10 cents per gallon with it. So it's a great value product. So you've got 2 different labels, 2 different languages. It's very confusing to the consumer. And if you're at the pump and you're confused, you're just going to pick another product, and the consumer will lose out in the end.
And I think the other point that you made there that, we've been talking about this, for years now, and that is one of the challenges for E15 and other fuel blends like flex fuels, E85, et cetera, has been making more blender pumps available. And one of your points that you're making there is that this piece of Indiana legislation kind of muddies regulations that would obstruct additional retailers, or at least make additional retailers a little bit nervous about offering E15. If that's true, it'd certainly stifle competition.
It most certainly would. And keep in mind, of course, these provisions, these are being pushed by the oil industry, who's trying not to blend ethanol. So they're adding regulatory ambiguity for what you do with your underground storage tank. It's adding confusion. It's adding unnecessary bureaucratic red tape. It's adding state regulations when you already have federal regulations. It's a lose-lose proposition, and it's bad policy, and the governor should see this. You made the comment earlier about the strength of the ethanol industry in Indiana. Indiana is the 4th largest producer of ethanol in the country, and Indiana producers, my members, they consume about half of Indiana's corn. So this is a wonderful in-state industry, and the ability to sell more of the 15% fuel is only going to add more in terms of the state economy.
One of the other points, I guess, in the environment that we're in now with the new administration and so much attention being paid to climate change and carbon, et cetera, I think I can pretty much say this without reservation that this is a much cleaner burning fuel.
Absolutely, it's a cleaner burning fuel. A recent study came out in January. Ethanol is a 46% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions relative to gasoline. So that's ethanol. Now, in the state of Indiana, if Indiana goes from an E10 blend to an E15 blend, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions you reduce, it'll be the equivalent of taking nearly 100,000 vehicles off the road in the state.
Wow.
So it's real immediate value if you are concerned about climate impact.
Well, and I guess if you're concerned about it, I think the point here is, and this goes to farmers, this climate change thing is not going away. The carbon issue not going away. And we're either ahead of it or we're behind it. And if we're behind it, we're going to get dictated to. So like so many have said, and I'm talking about, all the way to the top echelons of the Farm Bureau, et cetera, we need to have a seat at the table, whether we agree or disagree with the issue. So this is probably one of those issues that qualifies for that. Emily Skor, CEO of Growth Energy, thanks so much for your time. We sure appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.